Hi, everyone. This is Cory. It's been a while since I've been able to broadcast here on LinkedIn. A lot of good stuff going on, professionally with Shedwool. Also, a lot going on in my personal life, and then obviously in everyone's personal life with the global virus and pandemic going on. So, first of all, I just want to say thank you to all of you that have reached out to see if I'm okay, to say hi, to give me your thoughts on what's going on and to ask for my support in a number of ways. I'm always happy to help in any way that I can. And speaking of people who like to help in their DNA on a global level, I have, and I'm extremely excited to introduce my personal executive coach, a dear friend of mine, an influencer here on LinkedIn and the founder of Random Act. That's gone viral now a couple of years in a row, helping make the world a better place. Renee, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my network that might not know you and to the world, and let you say a few words.
Hey, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. When I got inspired the other day to want to add value, and the best way that I know how is what can I do from the kindness front, and how do I serve, and how do I love? That's a big part of me and one of our core company values. And I was getting inspired. I want to give some suggestions and some ideas of what I'm sharing with my clients. And you know what came in my head was you, was Cory. And what did I do, Cory? So tell them what I did and how you felt about it.
So, and I love the platform I stream from, Social Live, but you'll see there's some technical nuances to getting back and forth. So there may be a second or two before you see either of our smiling faces. But Renee, I was beyond delighted. You reached out and basically said you had a message and you wanted to get out to people, especially, as we're all kind of, distancing ourselves and self-separating and in our houses and thinking about, ways to position ourselves for our next chapters. You had this idea for a live broadcast. You wanted to do kind of a Q&A and an interview style broadcast. And you asked if I would be willing to go live with you. And I was absolutely delighted and honored. And, I'm hoping that people get kind of a behind the scenes into how you and I, kind of riffed off each other as we work together, and as you've helped me find my leadership why and my power zone, and really changed my life as a leader and an executive. So I was absolutely thrilled and delighted, and here we are. This is kind of a testament to your determination and your willpower, right? It was yesterday you wanted to make it happen, and you're the one that brought me out of hibernation, and here we are.
Absolutely. I tracked you down. I know how to find my clients. I sent Guido after them. Just kidding. Excellent. I want to, before I get started, is, as you know, my personality is positive. I can't help it. I'm kind of a cheery person. But I also want to be real in this state. There's so much going on out there, the news, maybe even in your own personal life. I know my clients have called, they, having to take shifts in their business and a variety of things. So there's real challenge right now. There's some real stressors, and I don't know if I'm muted. It says I'm muted, so I don't know if that's working or not over here. Muted to prevent your listeners can hear. I'm going to see. Okay, maybe it's just over here on my end. Okay, sorry, we're using new technology. But see, the stresses, we're going to handle it with fun today. How's that? So if you look around us, there's ways that we can respond to a virus. And the most important thing that I want to share today as a leader is that a leader is to provide hope. But not false hope. There's obviously some challenges. There's going to be some not so good situations, even fatalities. And unfortunately, with diseases in the world, regardless if it's this or another, that does happen. So, I want to be sensitive. There's going to be stresses in households, with finances, with paychecks, with daycare, with business bottom lines, the stock markets, right? There's a lot of things. But if you look around you, what I love seeing, which also created inspiration here, Cory, was how the world is responding around us right now. And if we give hope and we can then pull together and we can look at things differently. And I agree that we need to stay strong and we need to not panic, whatever we want to do. So my own stress came up, and I was sharing with clients some ideas, and I just felt as compelled to serve like I typically do around here. I just love this platform. And I wanted to share with my network, your network, their networks, and so forth, some ideas for those who are willing to stretch with me and with you, Cory, today. And that's what I want to do. So if that's okay, I'm going to jump into point number 1. Are you ready? Yes? Okay, just make sure. Okay, so point number 1 that we're going to cover with that. Cory has something to say. Yes? Okay, he's good over there. We're looking at each other over here. Okay, so point number 1 is your best asset. I firmly believe this, leaders, whether you're an executive role, you're a small business owner, you're a solo entrepreneur, or you're a leader in your life, your best it is your leadership voice. Okay, and what do I mean by that, your leadership voice? Here, it's about understanding your leadership why. Making sure you know what is your number 1 focus, what is your purpose in leadership. And there's different elements that go into that I'll talk about later, but there's clear benefits that when you know your leadership why, amazing things can happen. So Cory, at this point, this is something that you shared a couple weeks ago in your testimony video for me about the power of leadership why. So I'd love for you to share with us what that was like for you to find yours, what happened, and go from there.
Absolutely. And I was trying to speak earlier. We were having some technical difficulties, but so hopefully I'm able to get you back on the screen. I've been wizarding back here for us. But no, the leadership why, I think in order to really speak to that, what I need to do is kind of give a little context. Within my company, they literally call it Cory Magic. And they'll say something like, we need to find, a person that fits this description, or we need someone that has this unique skill set. And quite literally later that evening, I'll sit next to that person on a metro train or at a bar, or, someone will, mistakenly dial the wrong number, and I'll answer, and we'll just talk, and they become the right person. And I've really become this magnet, and it's not just me. I see this happening with other people that I engage with, and that I know in my personal life, but the right things keep manifesting themselves in my life. And I'm a big proponent of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. I read this book daily, and it does kind of talk about some of those things. And I often talk about the law of reciprocity, the law of attraction. But I think that leadership voice really is how you take your internal, or at least what I feel that you taught me, is how to take how I viewed myself and how I think about myself at my best, and how do I present that in a way that the world resonates with that, and that the world can respond to that. And then we can talk about, energies and frequencies and vibrations. We can talk about prayer and blessing. We can just talk about, karma, whatever we want to talk about it as. But it really is that what you put out is what you get. And once you learn how to speak, I've for years said closed mouths don't get fed. But it's also, in the context of speaking a message and putting yourself out there. Yeah. And I can, I can speak to your book as well. This is literally, your book is always on my nightstand as well, right here. But I really do think that voice is, most people don't understand how they present themselves, and it's beyond a first impression. It's, how are you perceived on social media? How do your colleagues and the people that work for you speak about when you're not in the room? And I think that all comes from your voice. So is your voice caring and empathetic? Is your voice angry? Is your voice, are you trying to implement fear tactics like you said about this? We all need to not panic. But what I was really wanting to interject with earlier is really when you said that the job of a good leader is to provide hope. That resonates with me so much. And I think that if you're a leader and that is a place that you want to lead from, how do you articulate that? And kind of the missing link there, or the gray area, that is the voice, right? If you care to inspire, how do you inspire? That's your voice. If you want to impart hope, similarly. So I can pass it back over to you, but that's really, I think for me, the voice is just how you present yourself to get people bought into your vision. And not for nothing, after working with you, I was able to hire a CEO and replace myself because I wasn't a great CEO, and I became the Chief Visionary Officer, because you had me hone in on my vision. So with that, I'll send it back.
that. That's awesome. What a great example. I couldn't have said it better. I have notes here, viewers, because I want to make sure we get enough in. I promise this, but boy, that's just like summed a lot of it up. So I'm going to kind of paraphrase a few things here. Excellent, Cory. You know what? As I'm looking on the live right now, it doesn't show me it, or maybe it's delaying. Oh, I know what it is. It's got a delay in it. Okay, so I'm just going to keep talking, and hopefully it will swing back over in here, and it just has a delay to your listeners. Okay, there I am. All right. So you're so right. So let me real quick here. Guys, what he's talking about is not hocus pocus. It's absolutely having that clear focus of your leadership why. And just to back that up, Harvard did a study several years ago. And I often talk about this with my clients about understanding what makes the top 10% income earners be in that position. And they surveyed over 300,000 top 10% income earners. Who would like to be there? Okay, hands hopefully going up. And, you know, they asked them, why do you think you're in this position? What makes you unique? And you know what they said, coming back and summarizing it, is that they thought about what they wanted and how to get it most of the time. Okay, thought about what they wanted, how to get it most of the time. And if you don't know your why, you can't do that. And energetically, when you know your why, because you're thinking about it, you're putting yourself in the position, like Cory talked about, you're attracting energy and relationships. It happens all the time for me and my clients. It is absolutely works. And so that's an area we can get into later. Also, when you are an energetic, attracting leader, is that you got to be willing to take a stand. And when you take a stand, sometimes you're taking that stand alone. Sometimes you have to take a risk for the greater good. And a leader, as Cory was talking about with hope, is that a leader must take care of their people. You've got to be a calming force, especially in this time. And that is going back into paying attention to the tone of your voice, because your tone and your words, if you're not careful, it can actually be very damaging and set a lifetime precedence in your employees. And also that how you treat your employees is going to ripple out into the employment environment and potential employees that you might need to backfill and replace after all of this is over. So be really careful. Don't assume they just love you and you can bark at them or so forth. And keep in mind too that your voice is not just speaking. In fact, the most powerful voice you have as a leader is listening. Listening. And then making sure they're heard and reflecting. I also want to encourage about that setting expectations of hope. The goal here as a leader is to help them take their power back, and you taking your power back too as a leader. This can be a time for expansion. In fact, that's what inspired me to want to do this, because we can fall into the wallows of all the stress and chaos and panic, or we can expand with this. And that's so important. And so you want to be sensitive to where your temperament of your team is and how they're feeling and so forth. But you want to be careful that you're not disempowering them. You want people to feel safe, and you want to be careful, but you don't want to coddle them. And think about this. If you coddle too much, the cost could be encouraging them to forfeit their true potential and bring that forward during this time. So you need mental fortitude. You need to know your why, your strengths, and your value. All that comes together. Leaders need to stretch and inspire. And that's what I talked about in my post yesterday. They need to evolve to new places. They need to call their employees up with them. Call them up. It's okay to do that. And that's where I personally have gotten my greatest growth every time in my life, like I talk about in my book, Cory knows in my speaking, is every time I step into fear, away from comfort, I've grown, I've developed, created something new. And so I want to jump in to point number 2, and then I'll ask Cory for some feedback too in this area as well. And that is leveraging and mitigating stress. Come on, there's stress out there. Even Miss Power Zone and Cory Shedwool is not immune to this. We're going to have stress. So the key here is understanding, you know, how to utilize it, and maybe even to your benefit, right? Here's something really quick. The Mayo Clinic, actually I taught this at the state capitol in California, down when Arnold was in office, down from his office with all the state legislation and so forth, is that the Mayo Clinic has come out and said that this is the top thing that they see patients for is stress related. But you know what? Stress is not an illness. Think about that. It's not an illness. And in fact, when they do transplants for patients, they have to actually give them a shot that helps with the hormones around stress so that the body doesn't react. It's not necessarily part of us. It's something that's created from our olden days in Flight and Fright and the clubs and everything else chasing dinosaurs, right? But we got to remember that it's not an illness. It's something that we create inside of us when we get underneath extreme pressure and stress. So it takes a lot of energy to mitigate stress. It's not about getting rid of it. So if you take that off the table, leaders, it's not about getting rid of it. It's about adjusting how you react to it and your team reacts to it. And it's about adjusting those stress reactions. And just maybe when you do that, you can take advantage of it. See, I believe our greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over the other. And in my book and in my trainings, my time management that Cory's gone through, I talk about real quick, I promise a strategy, and I want to share this real briefly with you. I know I talk fast when I get excited, but I want to make sure it's going to be recorded. You'll get this. Is that it's called engine warning lights. So viewers, here's a tip, a tip you can do. I just did it with a client actually 2 days ago for her and her team. And what you want to do is think about this. In your car, you have what they call idiot lights. Nowadays they're electronic. But you have the idiot lights, electronic warnings. So the first warning is your is your oil check light, right? You're driving along, you have your oil check light, and you're busy, you got different things going on, you're stressed out, so maybe you ignore it. Then maybe your check engine light comes on and you're like, oh man, I got meetings, I got things, I can't do this. Maybe you take a sticky note or air freshener and you stick it up in front of that and you ignore it. Now what happens? You're driving down the road. What's the next light? Uh-oh, the engine is exploding and you're off on the side of the road. And more often than not, that happens when you're going to an important meeting or you had a deadline you needed to meet. It's like the least opportune time, right? And now you're in a very reactive mode. So here's a strategy that you could implement right now for yourself as a leader and for your team, is to take time and actually identify, what does it feel like? Because our stress level will start somewhere in our body. Could be your neck, could be your shoulders, could be your breathing, could be your rapid thoughts. Where is your your oil check light? Write it down. What does it look like? What does it feel like? And what does it look like? The next one and the next one. Draw a line next to it. This is where you up level and you take your power back. And you do this when you're in a good mood. So put some tunes on, read a quote or something. So you pick your best ideas. You then attach to each one of those choices and have 1 to 5 choices like, okay, when I feel this way, instead of reacting, I'm going to go do an act of kindness. I vote for that. Let's do some more acts of kindness. Okay. How about humor? Use something. Watch something that brings humor. Humor reduces stress right away. It brings the different endorphins up, right? How about meditation? How about reading a good book and so forth? How about song? What I love is that Italy, you see it in the news how Italy is doing with this isolation. They're getting out on their balconies, and what are they doing? They're serenading each other. Can you imagine if we did that here in the States or other areas? The difference we could make in our world. I really feel there's an expansion happening. Just depends on what we're willing to look at. So if you get out of your head, because our thoughts start to move us down a track of anxiety, and then we start reacting accordingly, and then it becomes this whole vicious cycle. So I would take a pulse of your team's emotion and pay attention to the quiet ones. They may put the mask of confidence on and may not tell you they're pedaling underneath that mask, and so fearful if it falls off, what could possibly happen. So give them permission. Leaders, you've got to give them permission and call them up that you want to hear how they're feeling, but you're there to encourage and support. You're not going to blame. You're not going to pick on them and so forth, because anxiety is contagious. It is contagious. And help them change the story so that they can move forward. And then you as leaders, making sure that you do some things that help you set yourself up for self-care first thing in the day, so that whether you're meeting them electronically or you're still going into the office, however, that you've gotten in touch with your personal power zone and you can come from that voice of confidence and strength and be able to support them. Things that haven't gone away is conversations. things that haven't gone away is building relationships, doing self-care, providing hope and kindness. So we want to keep perspective in this. That's one of the biggest things you can do. And if you keep perspective, then you can provide more hope, right? And mindset will always determine the quality of a leader and the strength of a team. And so before I move into the last point that we're going to cover today, I want to talk to Cory and tell us, what have you learned, with our coaching and in this process of how you've changed your story and the benefit it's done for you?
Absolutely. So the first thing that I would say is that for years and years I've said, and I still maintain this, I've lost family members, including my own mother, to cancer, right? I always say that stress is the killer, and I ascribe stress as probably being a contributor toward, her getting and the cancer getting worse. And so I think that stress itself can be bad, but I think that pressure can be amazing, and it's super cliche to talk about diamonds, right? And, coal having to be under pressure to come out of diamond and things of that nature. But I do think that when we're able to take any, situation and find the positive over the negative, kind of what you're talking about earlier, even in this coronavirus, as business leaders, as, employers, employees, as social stewards, when we're able to find and tune into the good, and when we're able to actually, bring a good perspective into the bad. An analogy that I love is that if you bring a little flame into a dark room, it'll light the room up. But there's no amount of darkness you can bring into a light room to make it dark, right? It's one of those things where it's exponential. And the more that all of us bring that positive perspective, it is always going to be serving. And when we see others that are in a stressful situation or under the impact of stress that's not being processed properly, I think sometimes all it takes is that affirmation, that smile, that glimmer of hope. And so through that lens, I think that stress itself to me is not inherently good, but I think that it can be channeled into good, and I think that it can be overcome. And I think that overcoming anything, that could have potentially been negative and channeling the positive instead, I think that can tip tip the scales, tip the balances here on Earth. So I don't know if that specifically speaks to your question or not, but I think that inherently stress itself can be bad, for us as individuals and as a society. But I think that as we choose to not let it, it loses its power pretty quickly.
I would agree. Well said. The studies show that the number one way to reduce stress is mindfulness. So mindfulness. We hear so many things. I'm not the only one. But if you can get in check with that with yourself, if you're homeschooling your kids, with your kids are hearing things, on the media and social media and different things, pay attention to the thoughts, because that's going to give you the avenue to help expand the possibilities as a leader and be less reactive, no matter the situation that you're dealing with. So it's so important to consider that as well. Well said. I want to move into some strategies around the third point I want to talk today about, power profit centers. And as Cory said, he hired his whole team through our process. And one of the things that we did is really identify where are those power leaks in his leadership role, as well as in his business and his life, and then how to plug those so that you have profit centers. And with that said, the first thing I want to do is to really help you understand what I'm coming from far as power profits. We have a global situation going on here, and I'm not trying to make any profit off of this. So let's just be straight about that. But what I'm also trying to share with you is that profits is not a bad thing in business. In fact, if we don't have profits in business, how do we stay afloat? How do we make the paychecks? How do we serve? How do we grow beyond and actually, to achieve our legacy in the community? And so I want to back that up, though. What I want to talk about today is what actually I believe creates profits in business, because the byproduct of great leadership is profits. Yes, to the bottom line, but how do we get there? How does that actually happen? That's through powering up your people. So when you hear me talk about my tagline that turn leadership into your greatest profit center, that is what I'm talking about, is powering up your people, because when you do that, the bottom line is going to take care of itself. It absolutely will. I've watched it over and over, and there are some studies out there as well that back that up. And so at this point, I also see that my clients, when they practice this, much like Cory's success story he did a few weeks ago, they often experience doubling and tripling their revenue. So I think if you look at it, how do you power yourself as a leader, and then how do you power up your team? That part's going to take care of itself. And some strategies to help make sure it takes care of itself that I want you guys to think about during this time where you might be off, you might be gathering virtually with your team and different mechanisms. You might be in an office, limited team, and wondering what can you have them do that's going to be valuable, that in the end can bring, their empowerment up and byproduct profits. Let's talk through a few of those. So one of the key things is about having a vision of success. Cory knows this. We went through a very strategic process creating his vision of success for Shedwool, which was different than when he started with. We had to stretch, we had to go and expand beyond what his current situation was to do that. And that's so important. So if you don't have a vision of success, there's a process I have. I'm not trying to promote that. I'm just saying that you need a vision of success. But the three key things that it should do for you, that you have the right vision to draw your team forward, to enlist them in your vision. It should set the purpose. It should inspire forward movement, and it should shape decisions. It should do those three things, and you can pretty much lock it down when you do that. And so if you don't have a clear vision yet this year, what a great time to get with your team, get with your executive team. How about going back to the drawing board and looking at your vision? I've done that with my clients and helping them look at where they're going to be repositioning some things so they still can fulfill it, but maybe later in another quarter, and not give up on the vision this year. But that becomes your target, and you can start subjecting the things you do each and every day, especially when you're home and you're trying to run around in circles like, how do I spend my time at home now? Maybe there's kids in the background or what's going on, is to be able to ask yourself the question, does it serve the vision? Yes or no? And you should be able to answer that very clearly. No. Figure out who you got to delegate it to. Do you need to dump it? Again, Cory knows this. He'll speak about this in a minute, or defer it. And if it's yours, then plan and schedule your time to be able to do that. So leaders should stretch. You absolutely, your goal is to stretch. And you should be looking at ways that you can actually provide opportunities for expansion that you might not otherwise see, versus right now shrinking into your comfort zone. Whatever role, position you're in, pay attention. There's hidden comfort zones that you may not be aware of. I got to give a quick shout out to Ellie Nicole Waters, who I was on her Wow Seat show, her Blog Talk radio show a few weeks ago, and that's on my website. You can go listen to a whole bunch of different hidden comfort zones that affect today's leaders and affect your bottom line. So those are real things to think about. Another thing to stretch yourself and expand that vision for yourself is get out of your container, get out of that box, right? And one way to do that is to pay attention to how you're scoring yourself. Are you scoring yourself like, okay, well, that was supposed to happen, now it's not. See, I'm sucking. Or, we're not going to be able to do this. We're going to have to go over here, and we're going to have to give up on that. Pay attention to where you're lowering your energy that doesn't allow you to be mindful and up level it. Challenge your team to break down barriers. Find the innovators on your team. I like the example of golf. I golf, and they don't say that, the scorecard says how many strokes you did. It doesn't say if you went left, right, way far, or short, although you want to go kind of far so you don't get tired, okay, with the golfing. But you know what? Keep moving it forward. Keep moving it forward. Keep being creative. Keep pushing for the new outcome. Don't settle. Don't settle. So change the story, your scorecard. Also, here's the last kind of one of the points I'm going to do that I'm going to hand it back to Cory here in a second, talk about his ideas as well, is that in having conversations with my clients and helping them actually up level during this time, I'm encouraging them to look at some of these projects they had set up in alignment with their quarters of their vision, is how can they actually bring them into this position today? So maybe it's not bringing the money through the door today, but if you gather your team, your different departments, and you work on them, then you're going to be ready when we come out of this to be drafting. You know, when you get behind those big truckers and you draft and you save fuel and time and get a little momentum, you can be drafting on all those things you work on now. So if you move some of those projects into position now, like I'll just throw you through examples that my clients are literally doing right now, that are increasing productivity, that are improving quality and customer care. And that is, one of mine is working on his digital leadership, spending time recording videos so that they have a whole marketing campaign ready to go and love and serve their customers, right? What a great idea in this digital era. You need to learn about your digital voice. One of them is working on making sure that they are fulfilling the SOPs. They've got their vision, they're going back in and they're spending time looking and auditing all their standard operating procedures for efficiency, quality care, quality control, time management, reallocating. What a powerful way to find some profit in there when everybody's focused on the right thing and getting the equal result you expect. That could cause a lot of pain and drama. So often we don't get a chance to get in and do that because we're already in the motion. You've assigned to somebody, it's become their task, so you don't bother because they're still in your job. But what if they leave and all the knowledge goes out the door? So we could talk all day about that one, right, Cory? And then so another one is working on customer care, is looking at their actual experience of customer care and doing things to love on kindness and hope for their clients, their patients in this particular practice, and then evaluating the model. How is it currently doing? Is it given the results that they want so that at the end of it, you get repeat business, you get raving reviews, and you get referrals. Those are the three ways that I measure a really powerful customer experience. And so they're digging down on quiet time they wouldn't have got otherwise and getting innovative and all kinds of things. So think in your world, where can you put your leadership into, your team into, and stretch them out of their container? Teach, train, model things. Get those quiet people into new roles, help them practice, learn, cross-train, all kinds of stuff. You want ideas, I'll talk about at the end how to do that. But Cory, let me throw it back to you. And we were talking beforehand. Tell us about Shedwool and what Shedwool's doing to help during this time and beyond.
So I thank you for that. I will say that I'm comfortable saying that it took a few years for us to kind of get to where Shedwool is clearly the easiest to use, most affordable shift scheduling platform that I'm aware of globally, right? I've done some pretty extensive competitive analysis and research. Our 90-day roadmap now has us to kind of what we've been envisioning for years, which is to have the smartest scheduling platform. So leveraging different data points, a lot of business intelligence, data analytics, machine learning is what we're implementing to help companies stay compliant. But kind of to your point about staying innovative, staying relevant, those of you that know my dog life, that was Raj that just jumped off the bed and messed the computer up. But we're leveraging ways with the platform to help companies shift employees into roles that didn't exist a week or two ago. So if you're a wait staff and you're not waiting tables, if there are some shifts available to come in and do delivery, or perhaps to do kind of curbside service or some things in the cities like Chicago that are shut down, we're opening up capabilities for that. We're also putting together an element with some community portals so that different communities can find opportunities. If you need help, post it to your community. If you have the ability to help people, put that out as well. And really just trying to find ways that we can serve communities around, not only the country, but around the globe within our capabilities as well. And just really understanding that we built this platform for several kind of core functionalities, but the first is a communication platform for shift workers. The world of shift work is kind of changing in real time in our eyes. So having that communications portal and hub is really important. The fact that we're kind of building these algorithms that are very loosely applicable to different use cases, we're going to be able to help this get the right people and deploy them to help the masses and to help their communities and things of that nature. And it's just, kind of to your point, when you and I started working together, we were a very bare bones team, and we started focusing on the right things to grow that team. And so now we have the right people in marketing and communications, the right people in engineering and product development, the right people in outreach, HR, all the things that we need to really support, our not only our existing client base, which thankfully is growing and we love them so much, but also those in need that we don't have a working relationship with. And kind of to your point, we're not looking at this as a lead generator or any type of a sales magnet. We're not looking to help people so that they, become paying customers down the road or not. We just want to be able to help people in this time of need. We have technology that can do that. So, it's kind of, right place, right time. We're just hoping to be able to do our part to help make, this a little bit less of a blow, especially into industries that it's really affecting. And that just so happens to be, kind of our staple and our archetypical client.
Thank you, Cory, for sharing that and what you guys are doing over there. So what I'm hearing is that you're expanding, you're looking at ways, you're utilizing the work you've done, you're repositioning yourself so that you can take advantage of, continue to evolve and grow and utilize your team and give back to your community that you're focused on, your why is focused on in serving, and not just, shutting down. Now, maybe, in some ways you're not able to patronage certain things, but you're still utilizing your vision and the models in order to move that forward. And you're a great example of that. And as are my clients, and I know there's many here on LinkedIn too. I want to shout out to many of you that are doing a great job in keeping the stress levels down and shouting out ideas. And I hope that when you play this back, if you weren't able to join us, that you throw your ideas in the comments so that we can all be up leveling. I'm big on kindness, big on service. And if you got other things, for sure, we can only capture so much at the end. Lastly, I want to throw out there is, one of the things to do when you're trying to work in this new environment of a little bit of chaos, right? And maybe even working at home is, instead of getting stuck on the all or nothing and overwhelming yourself, try the 15-minute rule. You can do anything in 15 minutes. In fact, you probably find that you'll increase your efficiencies and your outcomes by practicing this in whatever task you're putting your time and attention on. And then when you get done, get up, take a break, recalibrate your mindset, reward yourself, check in with your kids, whatever's going on, your employees, go back to another thing. And that will help you stretch in so you don't get overwhelmed, and plan your time. And if you can plan your time where you do your top priorities before lunch, that's what I teach my clients, is setting up their daily measurements of success. Then worst case, something happens in the afternoon, you get pulled off for some emergency or whatnot, you've got plenty of bandwidth, plenty of capacity to do that and to use your thinking and not make decisions from overwhelm. Instead, you are refreshed, your self-care reservoir is refreshed, and you can stay in that space of calmness and empowerment with those that you need to lead and influence. In closing this out, I just had two final thoughts, and then I'll hand it back to Cory, since he's our gracious host today, is look for the blessings. The answer isn't always simple, and sometimes it doesn't reveal itself till later. In fact, that's been much of my life during challenges that it reveals later. But having hope clears the pathway for the blessings to reveal themselves. You can't find hope, get out of yourself. Go do some kindness. That's what started Random Act several years ago. I'm so proud of all those that have been involved in that and continue to be involved, is because I needed to get out of my own way and have some hope and not have pity party, whatever was going on in my life then. And I reached out here on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of us out there that are willing to give. And so love and serve each other. Look for those blessings. And lastly, keep in mind, this is not the beginning to the end. Don't get caught up in all of that, okay, illusion and panic and stress. Instead, see it as an evolution. It's a return to your powerful self. And that's where I want to leave it and challenge you. Thank you, Cory, for hosting this.
It was a pleasure, Renee, and thanks for coming in to hang out. I heard a quote fairly recently. A dear friend of mine, Elaine Jock, and I were out in New Jersey and Southern New York participating in an event with some more amazing people. And I heard one of the other speakers said, he said, give without expecting. And I think we've heard that often, right? You give without expecting, it makes sense. But then he took it a step further, and he took the quote and put a second half to it for context that blew my mind. So he said, give without expecting, but also receive without resisting, right? And I think that that's a big thing. As we come together as a community, how can we help each other? And it's not how can we help each other for help's sake? How can we help each other so that we truly all can rise together, right? And rising tide, raises all ships and all these things. But truly, once we get into that cadence where we're part of the positivity, and that's what we're looking to usher in, and we're always trying to, get ourselves to the next level. I've been talking lately a lot about any of us that do anything professionally, whether we're public speakers, authors, whether we're salespeople, whatever it might be, executives, we can all get better at whatever it is that we're doing. We can all speak better. We can all sell better. We can all, forecast. And I have friends that are actuaries, right? This is science. This is mathematics. If they can't get better every day or every quarter, they're going to get left behind, right? And I also often say innovator get left behind. If we're not trying to consciously get a little better at everything we do every time we do it, we're going to get left behind. So yeah, absolutely leaving your comfort zone. So with that said, hopefully we shared some concepts and some thoughts with people that help you as we all kind of do this, let's stay away from each other so we don't get each other sick, as we all do some self-reflecting, some introspection, hopefully some growth. And then from myself, first of all, Renee, I want to thank you for the work that we've done together over the course of the last year or so. And again, not a sales pitch for you or anyone, but I would recommend anyone that's watching this that's not working with a coach. It's, coaches get coaches as well. It really is a way. I mean, I was stuck kind of in a stagnant pattern for some time, a holding pattern, until I started working with Renee. And let me tell you, one wall after another started disappearing and things started to happen. And so, I found a coach that I have a great cadence with, and we work well together. And I wish that upon absolutely everyone watching this. And if you are a coach and you're not working with a coach, well, I don't even need to tell you, it is that important. So with that said, Renee, I'll let you kind of say bye to everyone, and then we'll tune out. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for all the concern, all the well wishes, all the love that you've all shown me. I love all of you. My hashtag LinkedIn fam.
Thank you, Cory. I just adore you and appreciate all that you bring to this platform. My goal is to serve today, and I hope I've been able to do that. And I did put up I'll make some comments I'll make some posts in the comments of a couple resources that are absolutely free and you might take advantage of during this time. I have a couple options that would allow you to have a quick little visit and give you a few ideas and practice kindness. You can always go to my website and get what Cory's talking about. There's a lot of tips, especially time management and different things that we can go on and on about leadership, what it's about there. But mainly, thank you for letting me serve today. This fills my heart. I feel like I'm doing something for the community here and humanity at large. And let's rise up together. Let's up level. Let's expand. Let's put the coronavirus on its head.